Hello, hello, hello. This is Chris Ferdinandi from GoMakeThings.com. And today I wanted to talk about buildless JavaScript testing. So I don't test my code enough. I think the general consensus among front-end developers is that testing is a good thing, and that also we all tend to generally not do it as much as we should. There are some people who do a good job of it. I'm not one of them. I think there's a lot of folks who feel like they should be doing more and they don't. And for me, one of the big things that keeps me from writing JavaScript tests as much as I should is that it feels really onerous. And a big part of that for me is just the requirement around using build tools. So anytime I have to interrupt my process to npm install and then npm and run some sort of task, you're going to lose me. It's part of some professional setups. You've already got some other automations running, but I've, in my personal projects, skewed a lot more towards buildless systems where my CSS is just plain CSS files. My JavaScript is just vanilla JavaScript and ES modules. So I'm not running any sort of build to load those into the browser. And adding a build step for my testing is a roadblock that I just don't want to have to deal with. And so today, I wanted to show you really quickly an approach you can use for testing your code that doesn't involve any sort of build at all. It is, just before you kind of jump in the comments with this, yes, it is kind of an old school way to do testing. I am admittedly a bit of a developer dinosaur. I still think it's pretty awesome. I think you can get a lot of value out of it. And if you're not testing now, doing this is good. It's a good thing. Before we dive into it, just the standard, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and I will include links to all the source code we're going to look at today down in the description. So with that out of the way, the idea for this actually came to me from my friend Baldur Bjarnason, who a while back wrote an article about web dev without Node, where he had a setup he was using for testing using Mocha, which is a Node-based JavaScript testing framework, and Chai, which is an assertion library you use with Mocha. Now, these were tools that I actually used to use for testing like a decade ago, back at my very first developer job. And it's been really cool to see these things continue to exist, because a lot of tools from that era just kind of fell by the wayside, but this one is still actively used under development, and has a lot of capability. But the cool thing about it, so Baldur had this whole process he was using with, even though it's node-based, he had this whole build step that he was doing that was not node-based, so he could avoid any sort of NPM process. That's really cool, but I wanted one that involved no build at all. And one of the things Baldur linked to was that Mocha actually has a whole tutorial on their site on how to just run Mocha in the browser, which gets you things like this. So I've got some tests that I've set up, and when I open the browser, it runs those tests and it tells me if they passed or if they failed and what needs to get fixed. So I wanted to very quickly show you how that all works, because it is awesome. And it also means that you can selectively run tests. So because these are able to be run in Node, if you wanted to have some sort of run all the tests automation thing, you could, but you can also just open like an index.html file to look at the specific test you're curious about, and kind of actively use it when you're developing, if you want to use like a test-driven development or TDD kind of approach to things. It's really cool. So let's take a look. I'm going to show you a very simplified version first, and then we'll look at an ES module-based version. There's almost no difference between the two, but I have a calculator library. This one, it was an ES module, and I removed the export on it. But like normally you'd have this wrapped in like an object or a revealing module pattern or something. But I've got some functions in here to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And I have a test I want to run where I am going to make sure that each of these methods does the thing they're supposed to do. So for the add function, I want to make sure that it should add 2 or more numbers together, that if only one number is provided, that's the number that comes back out. And if you don't pass anything in, you get back 0 as the result. And I will in another video get into how you actually write tests, but just like really quickly here, you can see I am expecting that when I run add with 4, 6, and 8, the output should be 18 because 4 plus 6 is 10, 10 plus 8 is 18. If I pass in 42, it should equal 42. If I pass in nothing, it should equal 0. And I've done this for each of my different methods. And what I'm seeing here is that that is working as expected. And we can even, just to kind of prove that this is actually working, if I did something like, let's comment this out and say, let total equal 0. So we're always going to start it as 0. I can actually force this to, am I in the wrong one? No, that's right. This one works as expected. It's over here if I do it for subtract. So if I say let total equal 0, this actually fails. So I am getting an unexpected answer here because we're starting with 0 instead of the leading number. And so this is useful information. So when I used that approach for the add method, it works as expected. But when I try to use that same setup in subtract, it fails. So, oh, now I know I need to go fix something. So we can see that this actually runs and it throws errors when it should. So that's a good thing. So how do you actually do it? It's really straightforward. So in an HTML file, you are going to load the CSS for Mocha, and you're going to run the JavaScript for Chai, the actual testing library itself, or the assertion library rather, and the JavaScript from Mocha, which runs the tests. And then inside a script, which doesn't even need to have this class, you can you set up the type of Mocha test or assertions that you're going to be running. I like the BDD style, so that's what we're using here. You run Mocha check leaks, and then we are rather than like, so you could do this differently. You could actually have the script at the end if you wanted to, but I am just including all of the setup stuff together. I'm waiting for the window to finish loading, and then we're going to run our tests. This is also important, having it set up with a load listener, because if we go to use ES module styles, we need to wait for those to load because they all load asynchronously and deferred by default. So the next piece here is, because we have just like a global library, there's no exports in this. I'm going to load my library and load my test, and then that's it. It just automatically runs. If you wanted to do this with ES modules, the setup is only slightly different. So inside my test, I am importing, these tests are all exactly the same, but I am importing the functions from my library. And you can see inside the source code here, I am exporting those functions, which I can then import into my test. And then in the index file, I am loading just my test, not the whole library, and I'm giving it a type of module. And this is where that deferred running of Mocha run becomes really important, because even if I tried to drop this afterwards, this file would load after this script. So we need to set it up this way. But then if I jump over to this browser, you can see it's working as well. The other, I think, primary difference between these two is because I'm using ES modules here, I need to run a local server in order to open this file. I am not using Node for that. That is an option, but I'm not using it. I'm just running a really simple Python server. I even have a little command line shortcut set up for it. But if you were someone who used, let's say, MAMP, right, you could do that instead. You could just kind of spin up a PHP server. Whatever kind of server or stack or whatever works best for you. There's tons of command line prompts you can run for that. There's also third-party libraries that will just spin up a little server for you if you'd prefer something more GUI based. But it's a really just easy, simple, straightforward way to test your code without all of the NPM bullshit if you don't want to get into that. So yeah, that's that. In future videos, I am probably going to get a little bit deeper into the weeds on how you actually write tests. Maybe we'll even look at doing some end-to-end or integration testing using something like Playwright, which unfortunately does require Node. And the other thing I think I'd probably like to cover in a future video is how you do test-driven development in a way that doesn't suck. Because I used to hate it. I've tried to do it. It hurt my brain. It didn't fit with how I write code. And then I watched a video that taught me how I was actually doing it wrong. And so I tried the TDD approach as I was creating out these tests. And it actually helped me catch a couple of errors that I would have probably otherwise missed. So I'm converted. I want to show you all how to do that. We'll do that in another video. So that's it for today. If you like this sort of thing, please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, share it with a friend, leave a comment below and let me know what sorts of topics you'd like to hear in future videos, or if you have any questions about this one. And also feel free to check out leanwebclub.com, which is my course code and community platform where I have a bunch of deeper dives and tutorials around subjects just like this. I will see you next week and have a good one. Cheers.